What's going on, everybody, and welcome back into the channel. Brenden Schaeffer Fantasy Football doing a mock draft today on Sleeper 12-team PPR League, and we will be drafting from the 1.6 draft position. And hey, if you'd like to test your drafting skills in more than mock drafts, head on over to Underdog, where best ball is still going strong all throughout the month of August. And if you sign up now with the promo code BSCHAFE, they'll make sure to get you a deposit bonus plus a free pick for their Pick'em game, which is available in quite a few states now. So sign up once again with the promo code BSCHAFE on Underdog if you are interested in their Pick'em Champions game or perhaps playing a little bit of best ball on Underdog. But let's go ahead and waste no further time diving into the mock draft here on Sleeper. Again, full point PPR league. We're drafting from the 1.6 draft position and simply trying to build the best team possible. Let's see how the draft board unfolds to us. We have 3 running backs and 2 receivers off the board, which puts CD Lamb right in our crosshairs. He is a wide receiver that I would love to have a piece of in a full PPR league this year. So let's go ahead and waste no time and select him. Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, and Amon-Ra St. Brown going off the board next. 3 more good PPR values at the wide receiver position, but I think Lamb I have just a little bit higher. We hate to see Brock Bowers, speaking of PPR, go off the board at 2.6, 1 pick ahead of us in the second round. But with that happening, we're going to go ahead and grab a running back because I think after Bucky Irving, in my opinion, the running back rooms start to thin out just ever so slightly. We do like Chase Brown a little bit lower, but at ADP, we're thinking Bucky Irving, a nice pick. Really like his pass-catching chops as well. He did a little bit of everything with the Tampa Bay Bucks last season. So we're going to lock in 1 running back at least before we get too deep into this draft. And it just so happens that Chase Brown and Kyron Williams, the newly contracted Kyron Williams, both available to us. Another name that I really like is Jackson Smith-Njigba. So we're getting good value in round 3 because we see Team 4 and 5 go quarterback right ahead of us. That would have been a consideration for me if either Daniels or Lamar Jackson had fallen to the middle of the 3rd. I think elite quarterback, and even if you can snag one of the first 2 tight ends, elite tight end is a pretty good way to go about things this season in fantasy. But I'll go ahead and go Kyron Williams. I think I usually have Chase Brown ranked a bit above Kyron, actually, in my rankings, but I've been drafting a lot of Chase Brown recently, and so I'd like to try some things out. That's all part of the mock draft experience all throughout the month of August, and that's the kind of content we do on this channel. So make sure to subscribe if you're interested in more. I like to change it up a little bit from time to time, which means I'm going to go Kyron Williams here, drafting my 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds, which means I am going to fade the running back position really for the next probably 7, 8, 9 rounds until we can fill out the rest of our roster and put some PPR wide receivers on our bench. Devontae Adams is a fellow Ram of Kyron Williams, which is maybe a reason for me not to load up too much on one offense. Middle of the 4th, I'll say it, I'm comfortable taking Rashee Rice. I think he won't probably be in the middle of the 4th once his suspension length is announced, because I'm predicting 6 games on the suspension for Rice. It's a little tricky, but in this format, we do have 5 bench spots, and I trust my ability to draft a team that can get through the first 6 weeks, can use waivers, can use the trade market to be able to stay above water while Rashee Rice is suspended. So I'm not afraid to draft him because I am always planning for what my team is going to look like come the playoffs. A lot of wide receivers still on the board that I like. Jameis Williams, Xavier Worthy, Devontae Smith, and Cortland Sutton, all names that I like. I kind of like Jamo above the rest, honestly. The upside that he carries as a deep threat for the Detroit Lions. Their defense suffering a lot of injuries already in camp, and so I feel as though it may be a very pass-heavy offense this year again for Detroit, having to keep up in some games. So I don't mind having Jameis Williams as my wide receiver 2 while Rashee Rice is suspended, and he will be my wide receiver 3 once Rashee Rice returns. And then as I continue on, there's so much value in the mid-rounds when it comes to running back, or pardon me, when it comes to wide receiver, which is why I appreciate being able to stack up at least one good running back early on. Names I'm highlighting here like Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, and Jordan Addison at the receiver position. Addison's going to fill my flex, or excuse me, I did go Jalen Waddle, who is going to fill my flex. Addison is another one of those names you have to keep an eye out on with the suspension. And so probably wouldn't be a great fit with this team, even though I don't fear the 3-game suspension for him. Knowing I've already got Rashee Rice, that was a reason to go Waddle over Addison, who was off the board a few picks later. Still looking at the wide receiver position because it is PPR, because I do have that Rice suspension to deal with, and there's still plenty of names that I like. If I had to go running back here, if I had taken, say, a quarterback or a tight end in one of those early rounds, I might be looking at Caleb Johnson as a running back that I like here in the mid-rounds. But otherwise, I'm pretty much sticking to my guns on receivers, and I'll go ahead and draft Rome Odunze to my bench. But remember, with that Rice suspension looming, I am going to be starting Rome Odunze in my lineup week 1, which is something that I am happy to do. A year 2 wide receiver. We're always looking for breakout potential in our lineup, and I think Rome Odunze provides that. And by the way, with a couple of quarterback runs beginning now, you can't ever trust the CPU not to take a second quarterback, and we still have Team 2 that needs a QB ahead of us. I am considering grabbing my stack well above ADP with Caleb Williams going with Rome Odunze very nicely. Let's try to play the game, though, a little bit on ADP and see if a guy like Jaden Reed, who I believe is going to be starting in 2 wide receiver sets for the Green Bay Packers, let's see if we can get our quarterback to drop back to us, because ADP suggested that he would, and he certainly does. Jaden Reed ends up being a nice pick there for us because, again, we're loading up that receiving core. Now we've got 6 receivers that we really like in PPR. That's generally my goal in these 12-team leagues. And remember, I prioritize running back above everything else in this draft. And so to be able to have a 6-pack of receivers that I like on this level while not sacrificing starting running backs feels really good. We're going to go ahead and snag Caleb Williams here. I like him because of the stack. I like him because of the upside with a new offensive coordinator and head coach in Ben Johnson. I think Caleb Williams is supremely talented. I think he's got all the weapons that he could need. If it's not going to happen this year, it's not going to happen, in my opinion, for Caleb Williams. So I'm happy to take him in a, not quite a double-digit round, but round 9 we feel pretty good about at that point. 2 more quarterbacks did go off the board. I don't think in a real draft that's going to necessarily be happening since everybody had a starter on this side of the draft board. Purdy and Herbert going, unlikely. So when I'm in a real draft, maybe I would have gone Tyler Warren at the tight end position instead, because we could have potentially predicted that we wouldn't be in a position where the quarterback was going to be a risk prior to round 10, because, again, all these teams on the right side had their starter. But as it is, probably safe that we took Caleb Williams if he was the guy that we really wanted. But again, there's such good quarterback value late. Dak Prescott, Stroud, Jordan Love, all available. I went Dalton Kincaid at the tight end position because, I waited till a double-digit round to pick one. Usually my strategy with my bench is to go ahead and have another tight end option with some upside. And I see right there Kyle Pitts is at the top of ADP, not just at the position, but overall. I really like Kyle Pitts where he's going in the 11th round right here. I think Michael Penix is going to be a huge upgrade for that passing offense. Year 2, he's going to become the starter going into the season rather than taking over midway through as he did for Kirk Cousins last year. And it's not as though we're paying, 3 years ago pricing on a just coming into the league type of Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is very much a post-hype sleeper, and he's riding my bench right now. So I feel like because I waited and can't necessarily trust Dalton Kincaid as far as I can throw him, I feel pretty good about grabbing one more tight end just in case things don't work out with Kincaid. I think I've got upside, though, with both of those guys in pretty good passing offenses. Now we look to round out our draft because we have everything else we need. We're going to try to grab a couple of running backs here at the end. Remember, we prioritized this position with Bucky Irving and Kyron Williams. Could have gone Chase Brown. Could have gone, Bucky and Chase instead of Bucky and Kyron. Could have considered a guy like Breece Hall. Could have considered James Cook, although he's holding out. Could have considered a Marion Hampton and Ken Walker. But, man, after that, I'm not as high on Hubbard, not as high on Mixon, Connor, Kamara. That's kind of the dead zone for me, where I wanted to make sure to get at least one locked-in running back ahead of that zone, and I ended up with 2 and still found a receiving core that I really like. But to wrap things up, we're going to take another bench upside running back, and I've been taking a lot of Braylon Allen recently because I just believe he's going to mix in with Breece Hall and has a ton of contingent value if an event like a Breece Hall injury should materialize. So this is one of my favorite teams, honestly, that I've drafted. Got to understand I'm drafting against the computer, so you can't necessarily expect it'll go this way in the real thing, but I'm going to have some more mock drafts and some live streams on this channel as more and more people get to get into that mindset on fantasy football. It's still early in August, and so the general populace is maybe not yet thinking about fantasy, but once they begin to, we're going to be having nightly live streams on this channel in which you can participate. I'll send out the link, and you'll be able to, from my Discord, join the link before the video goes live. But just to recap the draft here, feel really good about this type of team, and I think this year I'd love to be drafting from the middle of the board rather than drafting from the turn or drafting from the very tip top of the draft on that side of the board. I like going from the middle because it just seems like you are in control and able to maybe be the guy that starts positional runs rather than the guy that falls victim to them. Caleb Williams, my quarterback, I feel pretty good about him. Again, didn't spend much draft capital to get him. I would go elite quarterback this year if the board falls to me in that way, but of course in this draft, it simply didn't. We had Lamar and Jaden Daniels going the 2 picks before us in the 3rd round, and so you take what the draft board gives you, which in this case was Bucky Irving, Kyron Williams, 2 running backs that I think are going to get a workload and certainly have an upside on offenses that could be pretty explosive. At wide receiver, we go CeeDee Lamb, Rashee Rice. Even though he's suspended, we know that Jamison Williams, Jalen Waddle, and Rome Odunze can cover for the period in which Rice is down. And look, I think Jaden Reed is maybe somebody to consider as well in that round. I would also have considered his teammate, Matthew Golden, if you want to go the rookie direction, which normally is what I do. On the bench, I think there's a case to be made that Golden has more upside than Reed, but he would be riskier in a starting lineup. Since in the Reed spot of my draft, I didn't need that position to be a starter for me, I should have gone Matthew Golden. But again, these are the things that you think about and can think through when mocking. That's why I love doing these mock drafts in August. Kyle Pitts is my backup tight end behind Dalton Kincaid. I can kind of play matchups with that position, and I really like Trey Benson, Braylon Allen as 2 backup running backs that I think could end up seeing some real opportunity when their starter is active, and when their starter, if it's James Conner, if it's Breece Hall, should go down to an injury. Great contingent value for both Benson and Braylon Allen. So I feel pretty good about this draft. I think it's pretty balanced, and this is one that I would be happy to play out a season with if this was my team in a 12-team PPR. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to stay tuned for the next mock draft video on this channel. And if you're interested in Underdog Fantasy, check it out in the video description below. My link to sign up with promo code BSHAFE and get yourself a deposit bonus. That'll do it for this edition of the show. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you next time on the channel.